Hello YouTube and people of the interwebs, welcome back to another video. Now, this is my more sort of breakdown and analysis video of Doctor Who Episode 2, War of the Sontarans. Also, towards the end of this video, I'm going to be looking at and talking about everything we know about Episode 3, because there's a lot of interesting stuff in that next time trailer, and if you want a full video on an Episode 3 breakdown, I may be posting that later. But yeah, so Episode 2. My initial reaction, I'd say, loved it. Like, yeah, very, very solid episode. Not the best of all time, but it was, yeah, a really fun, enjoyable piece of television to watch on a Sunday night, which is exactly what Doctor Who is supposed to be. Now, the characters, I thought, would like probably the best part of the episode, like the interactions and the dialogue and the performances from all the characters. Obviously you've got the visuals, which were amazing, like shout out to the art department as well, because all the prosthetics looked really cool. CGI team, there were only 2 ropey shots, which I'd say were the panning up shots of like the big war. The main wide shot of the war looked amazing, but some of that was a bit iffy. To be fair to them, they were working through COVID. Like, when they were filming that episode, I remember seeing a bunch of filming pictures. That was way back this time last year. So, like, right in lockdown 2, because if I remember correctly, November 5th of 2020 is when we went into lockdown 2. So, yeah, we weren't allowed to go to jobs or anything. And, yeah, they managed to make that episode during that time, which is incredibly impressive, especially with all the COVID regulations, etc. So, yeah, well done on that front. But, yeah, performances, brilliant. Jodie's Doctor, I think, yeah, one of her best performances. I much prefer when she's not all happy-go-lucky. I love the darker tone of her Doctor, and I think that is going to be continued into Episode 3, because, obviously, if you're a media student, this is like semiotics, but she has a darker coat. Maybe that's signifying she's got a darker personality in this episode. I don't know. But anyway, we'll stop talking about Episode 3 theories. Jodie's performance was brilliant. Mary C. Cole, I'm really sorry I can't remember the actress's name, but she did fantastically in this. She made me like properly care for the character, and I also loved that, unlike some of the other Doctor Who historicals, the historical figure isn't there just for the sake of it. Mary C. Cole actually played a proper role in the episode. She was transcribing all those notes and overlooking the Sontaran ships. She was doing all this, and I didn't think it felt forced in the way that Jodie's Doctor delivered like the exposition of who Mary C. Cole is, because I personally didn't know much about her. I'd vaguely heard of her, but yeah, I feel like I know a lot now, and especially for kids watching at home, I think it's great to give like a proper sort of educational spin on Doctor Who, because at the end of the day, in 1963, that is what's his name? The Sidney Newman. That's what he pitched Doctor Who as, like, it's educational, and I love that the Chibnall era maintains that. Now, if I'm honest, in some of the other Chibnall episodes, there was quite a lot of exposition. So Jodie would leave the TARDIS and she'd basically just sort of read off a Wikipedia article about the place. Like, she'd walk out like, oh, look, this is King James, and King James was the first king to blah, 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 and his mother was blah, 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 and it just felt a bit forced and on the nose. This, I loved that not even the Doctor knew everything about Mary C. Cole. Like, there was a moment where the Doctor asked her something along the lines of, oh, and what, you just came here on your own? And that allowed Mary C. Cole to sort of give us that exposition on her own without it being forced. Like, didn't feel like Wikipedia at all. It just felt like a natural, yeah, natural dialogue, which is perfect. Now, Vinder, this is his sort of first proper episode. Yeah, pretty solid. We haven't seen much of him, but I do love the way Jacob Anderson performs the character. Like, there's just something quite cool that you don't normally get in Doctor Who, and it's not like the cheesy cool of Captain Jack Harkness. It's genuine, like, whoa, like, this is a cool person. Like, yeah, I think his performance was great. Mandip Gill as Yaz, once again, brilliant, much better than her, like, well, no, Mandip Gill's performance has always been brilliant, but writing-wise, I don't think she was ever given enough to do in Series 11 and 12, whereas now she's properly, like, I loved that she had, like, the what would the Doctor do written on her hand. Like, I thought that was quite funny, and I love the character arc they're giving Yaz of making sure that she's, like, well, not making sure, showing that she is trying desperately to follow in the footsteps of the Doctor. It's a similar sort of arc to Clara, But for some reason, this one just, yeah, it feels somewhat more believable, more naturalistic, I'd say. And I love that element of it. It reminds me of like the classic series as well, because you've got quite a few companions and stories and people going on everywhere. But I'd say the episode does manage to do that. I also loved John Bishop as Dan, once again. The comedy between him and Carvinister, that's one of my favourite parts of this series. Just the banter between the two, and the fact that, because it's like the dynamic between, you know, when a family, like all the kids and the mum are asking, oh, can we get a dog? Can we get a dog? And the dad is like, no, I don't like the dog. I don't want the dog. But they end up getting a dog anyway. And then the dad falls in love with the dog and takes it on walks. It's like that dynamic, except Dan is the dog, even though Carvinista's a dog, if that makes sense. Like, it's the sort of role reversal of Dan being Carvinista's annoying little pet that he has to babysit and he has to look after. And Carvinista says he doesn't like Dan, but he clearly does. And it's, yeah, the dynamic there, genuinely amazing. Now, I would say, in terms of characters and dynamics, it's a bit of a shame that we didn't get much of the Doctor, Dan and Yaz in this episode. They were only really there for the opening 5 minutes and then the last 3 minutes, except Yaz wasn't even there for the last 3 minutes. She was like incarcerated in that time thingy, which is a great segue onto the fact that Swarm and Azure, and I think the Passenger is his name, the big like black clothed golden robed bloke, them three were really good. I mean, Passenger didn't do anything, but he was shown as an imposing threat. Swarm is brilliant, Azure is brilliant, and I love the weird makeup and prosthetics. Like, there's just something about it that's sort of, it's so quintessentially Doctor Who, and I love that. And I think the powers they have, where like Vinda tries to shoot them and they just disappear and then reappear, all of that's really good, and it properly ups the threat level. And I loved the concept of those little triangle things spinning around, and the fact that like Azure just goes up to it and whoosh, melts it. That was cool. Liked that. And yeah, I just think sci-fi concepts really high in this episode as well. The Sontarans were on point. Like, I said it in my initial reaction review thing, but this is the best interpretation I've seen of Sontarans in New Who. Like, I haven't seen every Sontaran classic story of Classic Who, but I'd say maybe even the best Sontarans in Doctor Who history, because the comedy was on point, but the threat was also on point. And I loved the scene where Dan Starkey's one makes the ultimate, like, blunder, and he goes back after being healed by a human, and they're like, that's disgusting, you're disgusting, and they just execute him on the spot. Like, I thought that was really well done, because it properly shows the threat and the militaristicness, is that a word? It is now. The military nature and enforcing dramatic threat of the Sontarans. So yeah, Sontaran's absolutely brilliant in this episode. Great to see Dan Starkey back, and I can't remember the actor's name, but whoever's playing the other ones, genuinely amazing once again. Now, I think that does wrap it up for characters, I think. Is that everyone? Yeah, that is pretty much everyone's performance. So yeah, there isn't really anything to fault in terms of characters in this episode, but maybe a little bit of fault in the story, because it sounds like a stupid complaint, but I didn't feel there was enough payoff. Now, obviously, we are still setting the series up, but at the same time, we are like 1/3 of the way through the entire series, and I feel like we need a little bit more. I feel like we're definitely going to get that in episode 3, because the cliffhanger to this one ended in quite a sort of maybe canon-heavy place. Like, in the Next Time trailer for episode 3, we've seen that the Division, or the Division guns, and all of this is back. Now, the Doctor desperately wants to learn about the Division. She even says to Carvanista in this episode, like, look, mate, I've not forgotten about the Division, you're going to tell me, and then she goes off. But yeah, Division, canon-heavy stuff, Timeless Child stuff, maybe. The one thing I'm worried about is the Ruth Doctor not coming back, because if she doesn't come back, I am going to be annoyed. Like, yeah, don't set things up, Chibnall, if you're not going to pay them off properly. Now, I'm not going to make any accusations now, because obviously we haven't seen the series, but at this point, I'm not 100% sure how the Ruth Doctor could actually, like, come into the series. Don't get me wrong, she could and she probably will, but yeah, maybe that's something cause for concern. I don't know. Yeah, would love to see the Ruth Doctor there. The Sontarans, like, story, I thought, yeah, it's quite a good plan. I like that they're trying to get time ships to go out and invade the universe. I liked that they managed to tie in the sort of Lupari ships coming around Earth not being foolproof, because the Sontarans managed to slip in and alter time. It was quite wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey, so I'm going to have to rewatch it before making a full judgment on the narrative, because if I'm honest, I can't remember every little detail of the Sontarans' plan. But from what I do recall, it was pretty solid, pretty good, and I thought, yeah, it gave a proper threat to the Doctor, which allowed Jodie's performance to properly shine through as she was shouting at the Light Brigade general person. Also, I loved that they made a reference to the Charge of the Light Brigade poem. That was good, although I do still think that the title of the episode should have been Into the Valley of Death. That would have been good. Into the Valley of Death rode the 600 Sontarans. Something like that. That would have been quite good. The temple, the Atropis, whatever it's called, that was quite good. The set design was brilliant. The look, the lighting, that was all like on point. But in terms of story, I'm pretty sure that's derived from Greek mythology, because Azure is someone from Greek mythology, I think, as well. I could be wrong on that front, but I'm pretty sure it has ties to Greek mythology, which I thought was quite interesting. Once again, it was a lot of setup, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I do feel like we need to start. If we're not getting answers by next week, then there'll be a problem. I'm going to let it slide this time because we are still in the introductory 2 episodes, but we have had like 2 hours and we don't really have any answers. The one thing they did wrap up was the Sontarans. Now, I'm presuming the Sontarans are going to come back at some point, because if that was it for the Sontarans, it will be a tad underwhelming, because they just sort of all got blown up in the last 5 minutes, which is a bit, I don't know, but I'm assuming they're going to come back later in the series, so I'm not going to hold that against the episode. But yeah, I thought I liked the dynamic between the Doctor and the Charge of the Light Brigade person, like the general, because he just ignored her, blew them up. And yeah, it was a very human thing to do. I thought there were some like cracking lines in this episode, like when the Doctor says, "You make me wonder why I still look after humanity. I hate you all." Ah! And then Mary C. Cole was like, "We're glad that you do, Doctor. Thank you." Because you almost have the devil and the angel on the Doctor's shoulders, with Mary C. Cole and the general. Like the general's being the bad side of humanity, Mary C. Cole as being the amazing, wonderful side of humanity. And yeah, that aspect was nailed pretty well, pretty good. I'm trying to think what else there is that needs tying up. Obviously, from Series 12, we've carried over the Master, the Cyber Masters. I don't know if they're going to crop up or make an appearance in the series. Maybe they will. The other thing I'd say is quite good in this episode is the score, because it wasn't, I wouldn't say perfect, but I liked it a lot, and I like the recurring motif of Swarm and Azure. Like, that's quite a threatening, gloomy, dark presence, which I think, yeah, very well done to Sagan Akinola for that. And yeah, I wonder whether he's going to stay on for the Russell T Davies era. Probably not, but yeah, I think the tone of it is very classic Who, and it definitely fits the Whittaker era as a whole. So yeah, the music really, really added to the story, I'd say. Plot threads being set up overall, quite good, quite confusing maybe. Also, I felt like, in terms of like plot threads and stuff, we didn't actually get a resolution to last week's cliffhanger at all. Like, that was a bit naff, I sort of feel. Like, they just sort of appeared and were like, whoa, some time thing happened and they survived. Like, they built up such a big cliffhanger, and then everyone was just immediately alive and fine. Which, it's a bit naff, and that does give us another criticism of this episode, maybe. The cliffhanger, it's perfect in terms of classic Doctor Who. It is possibly the most classic Who cliffhanger the new series has ever had. Like the companion with all the makeup on and the alien going, "We're going to Thanos snap her out of existence." We know Yaz isn't dead. So once again, leaving us with a cliffhanger that is just, "Oh, the companion's gonna die." I don't know if that's enough. If they told us what the thing was going to do, that this does bring us into episode 3 theories, if they told us what snapping actually does, maybe that would have upped the stakes, because if it's something like we're going to make Yaz forget the Doctor, or the Doctor's going to forget Yaz, because like in the teaser trailer we've seen Yaz in a police uniform and it looks like it's from the woman who fell to Earth, so maybe they're going like a turn left route and wiping Yaz from the Doctor's memory, or vice versa, something like that. If they told us that, that would up the stakes, up the personal threat, up the personal feel of the episode. But yeah, I mean, if you love Classic Who, you'll love that cliffhanger. For me personally, it was all right. It was just sort of like, yeah, that sure was another cliffhanger in Doctor Who. Like, I don't want them to leave it there, and I want to watch more. So it does fulfill its purpose, but I want an actual revelation as a cliffhanger. Like, I know it sounds stupid, but literally just the Ruth Doctor appears and it's like, oh, the Ruth Doctor's back. Something like that would just be lovely. So come on. We're still holding out hope we're going to get a revelation cliffhanger, not just a, oh, Yaz is dead cliffhanger. And I know people will argue, yes, but the fun of the cliffhanger is figuring out how Yaz is going to survive. Nah, it's not my personal taste. If it's yours, I respect that, and I'm glad. You must be a big Classic Who fan. But yeah, so I think now is the time to move into episode 3, theories and stuff. I'm going to do a proper breakdown video, but I'm just going to give little bits and bobs of my series 13 episode 3 theories here. As I just mentioned, I'm pretty sure they're going to travel back to like the woman who fell to Earth, because you've got Yaz in her police get-up looking exactly as she did in that 2018 episode. If you've forgotten, the woman who fell to Earth was Jodie Whittaker's first ever episode way back October 7th, 2018, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I think they're going to do some timey-wimey thing with that, or they're going to like recruit her into the division and stuff. Like Dan, Yaz, the Doctor and Vinda. Well, the Doctor has a new coat. The other 3 are wearing division type uniforms in the trailer. They also have those guns that the Ruth Doctor had. So I know I keep mentioning her, but if the Ruth Doctor's coming back at any point this series, episode 3 is the perfect time to throw her in there. But yeah, I think other speculation is if you've got the division, maybe you've got Gallifrey, because we know Gallifrey is either where the division is from or has incredibly, incredibly heavy ties to the division. We also, well, I'm assuming the Sontarans are coming back. Maybe they won't be back for episode 3, but they're definitely, well, almost definitely coming back at some point in this series, which is good because I thought they were a welcome presence, funny alien in this episode. We also know that there's Cybermen in episode 3, which gives me the little theory, which I'll touch on later in another video, probably out tonight, possibly out tomorrow. The Master, is he coming back in episode 3? If you go into Gallifrey, the last place we saw the Master was Gallifrey, with the Cybermen and the Cyber Masters. So if the Cyber Warriors or Cybermen are back, maybe the Master is joining them. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That does do it for this review of Doctor Who, The War of the Sontarans, episode 2. Thank you very much for watching. Please let me know your, not your comments, your thoughts about the episode in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching. Please do watch Echo's End, our unofficial Doctor Who fan film. Link will be in the description. This has gone on long enough. Goodbye.